The desperate call, Commander Rifta pressed her webbed fingers against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching another transport ship burn in Aquinas' upper atmosphere. The vessel's death spiral painted orange streaks across the twilight sky before it disappeared behind the coastal mountains. That made 17 ships lost today. 17 ships full of families trying to evacuate to the outer colonies. Families who would never see another sunrise reflect off the endless blue oceans of their homeworld. The Corvan Syndicate had been systematically hunting down every evacuation attempt for the past 3 months. Their massive raid ships, bristling with weapons and scarred from countless battles, formed a deadly blockade around Aquinas. Nothing got in or out without their permission, and their permission always came with a price too high for the peaceful Zealoty to pay. Rifta's gill slits fluttered with barely controlled rage as she turned away from the window. Her blue skin, normally bright and vibrant like tropical waters, had dulled to the color of storm clouds. The emergency council chamber buzzed with desperate voices as her fellow commanders argued over impossible choices. Some wanted to surrender completely, offering whatever resources the raiders demanded. Others insisted on fighting to the last breath, even though their defense fleet consisted of converted cargo haulers and civilian vessels hastily fitted with mining lasers. "We need to face reality," croaked Elder Findar, his ancient scales pale with exhaustion. "Our people are dying. Every day we delay surrender costs more lives." "Surrender means slavery," snapped Commander Coralven, her younger voice cutting through the discussion. "The Corvans don't take prisoners, they take workers. Our children would spend their lives in their mining operations. Our elders would be left to die." Rifta had heard these same arguments every day for weeks. The Zealoty had built their civilization on cooperation and peaceful trade. They had no experience with warfare, no understanding of the brutal calculus that species like the Corvans lived by. Their greatest weapons were designed for moving asteroids and clearing shipping lanes, not fighting battles against heavily armed raiders. The chamber's communication system crackled to life, interrupting the debate. "Commander Rifta, we're receiving reports of another assault on the southern continent. The Corvans have deployed ground forces this time. They're taking civilians." The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Ground forces meant the siege had entered a new phase. The Corvans weren't content to simply blockade Aquinas anymore. They were preparing to strip the planet bare, starting with its most valuable resource, the Zealoty themselves. "How long do we have?" Rifta asked, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her heart. "Unknown, Commander, but based on their current rate of advance, they could reach the capital within days." Rifta closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 20 billion souls pressing down on her shoulders. She had been a diplomat once, skilled in the art of negotiation and compromise. But diplomacy meant nothing when your opponents communicated only through violence. "There is one option we haven't discussed," came a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. Archivist Tydron, keeper of the ancient records, slowly made his way to the center of the room. His movements were careful and deliberate, the result of centuries spent in the archives beneath the capital city, something that has been gathering dust in our deepest vaults for over 200 years. The chamber fell silent. Tydron was the oldest among them, his memory stretching back to the early days of Zealoty space exploration. If anyone knew of forgotten alternatives, it would be him. During the first expansion period, when we were still making contact with new species, throughout the galaxy we encountered a world called Earth. Tydron continued. The inhabitants were ... unusual. They came from what the galactic community called a Deathworld, a planet so hostile that simply surviving there required constant warfare against the environment itself. Several council members exchanged glances. Most species avoided Deathworlders when possible. They had a reputation for solving problems through violence rather than negotiation. The humans offered us a protection treaty. Tydron said. We declined, of course. Our philosophy has always been that violence begets violence. But they insisted on leaving us with an emergency beacon, claiming it was standard procedure for all their diplomatic contacts. You're suggesting we contact warriors? Elder Findar asked, his voice heavy with disapproval. That goes against everything we believe in. Everything we believe in is about to be destroyed, Rifta said quietly. Continue, Archivist. Mictran nodded. The humans made it clear that activating the beacon would be considered a formal request for military intervention. They were very specific about the terms. Complete authority over the response, no interference from our forces, and, he paused, payment to be negotiated after the threat was eliminated. What kind of payment? Commander Coralvin asked. They didn't specify. They said it would depend on the nature of the threat and the resources required to eliminate it. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Signing a blank contract with a species known for violence seemed almost as dangerous as facing the Corvins. But another explosion in the distance reminded them that their choices were rapidly disappearing. Where is this beacon? Rifta asked. Vault 7, in the deepest section of the archives. I can have it retrieved within the hour. Rifta looked around the chamber, seeing her own desperation reflected in every face. They were drowning, and someone had just thrown them a rope. It might pull them to safety, or it might drag them to a different kind of destruction. But staying in the water guaranteed death. Retrieve the beacon, she ordered. We'll reconvene in 1 hour to make the final decision. The hour passed like a lifetime. Reports continued flooding in from across the planet. The Corvins had expanded. Their ground operations, systematically destroying infrastructure and herding civilians into transport ships. Their tactics were efficient and brutal, refined through countless raids on helpless worlds. When the council reconvened, the beacon sat in the center of the chamber like an accusation. It was smaller than Rifta had expected, roughly the size of a datapad but much heavier. The metal was strange, darker than anything in their technology, and it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Are we really considering this? Elder Findar asked. Inviting Deathworlders to our home. The Corvins are already here. Elder Rifta replied. At least the humans might leave when they're finished. Another report came in. The southern continent's capital had fallen. 3 million civilians taken, their fate unknown but easily guessed. The Corvins had orbital superiority, ground superiority, and all the time in the world to strip Aquinas clean. Rifta picked up the beacon. It was warm to the touch, almost like living flesh. Does anyone have a better idea? Silence filled. The chamber, outside, another evacuation ship died in flames. I'll take full responsibility, Rifta said. If this brings disaster to our people, the blame is mine alone. She found the activation switch, a simple depression in the metal surface. For a moment, she hesitated. Once pressed, there would be no going back. They would be committed to whatever terms the humans demanded. An explosion, closer this time, shook the building. Emergency sirens began wailing across the city. Rifta pressed the switch. The beacon immediately began to hum, its surface warming further. Symbols appeared on its face, text in the human language that their translation systems struggled to interpret. After several minutes, the symbols stabilized into readable Zelaphi script. Connection established. Routing to available handler. The beacon projected a holographic display into the air above the chamber. Static filled the image for a moment before resolving into the face of a human female. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with short dark hair and eyes. That seemed to catalogue everything they saw. Her uniform was military, covered in symbols that meant nothing to the Zelaphi Council. "This is Captain Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Emergency Response Division," the human said, her voice carrying an authority that made several council members step back. "I'm showing an activation from ... Aquana Selathi homeworld. Our records indicate you declined protection services approximately 237 years ago." "That's correct," Rifta replied, stepping forward. "I am Commander Rifta of the Aquanis Defense Council. We are ... We require assistance." "Define assistance," Captain Chen said. Her tone was businesslike, efficient, almost cold. "Our world is under attack by a species called the Corvin Syndicate. They have over 300 ships in our system. Our defenses are inadequate. Civilian casualties are mounting by the hour." Captain Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Corvin Syndicate. We're familiar with them. Slavers, primarily, though they deal in whatever generates profit. How long have they been in your system?" "For months. The siege began gradually but has intensified over the past week. They've begun ground operations. Ground operations indicate they're preparing for harvest operations," Chen said, matter-of-factly. "Standard Corvin procedure. Strip the world of valuable resources, enslave the population, move on to the next target. You probably have days, not weeks." The casual way she discussed their impending doom sent chills through the chamber. But there was something else in her tone, something that suggested the humans understood exactly what they were dealing with. "Can you help us?" Rifta asked. "We can eliminate the threat," Chen replied. "But I need to be clear about our procedures. When Earth intervenes, we intervene completely. No half measures, no negotiations with the enemy, no restrictions on our methods. We solve problems permanently." "What does that mean, exactly?" "It means the Corvin presence in your system will be removed. All of it. Ships, ground forces, support structures, everything. The threat will be eliminated in its entirety." The words carried a weight that made Rifta's scales prickle. There was something in the human's tone that suggested elimination meant something very specific and very final. "What are your terms?" she asked. "Standard protection rate for a class. 5. Threat. Payment negotiable based on world resources and strategic value. We'll need complete tactical authority during the operation and unlimited access to necessary facilities." "What kind of payment?" Captain Chen smiled, and something about that expression made Rifta's blood run cold. "We'll discuss that when we arrive. The Corvin Syndicate has been a problem for several of our protectorates. Consider this a priority response." The transmission began to fade as Chen continued. "Expect our fleet within 72 hours. Do not engage the enemy during that time. Maintain defensive positions only. Earth Fleet Command is now assuming responsibility for this situation." The hologram winked out, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. "What have we done, Elderfin?" whispered. Rifta stared at the now silent beacon, wondering the same thing. Outside, the sounds of battle grew closer. They had asked for salvation, and something was coming. Whether it would save them or damn them remained to be seen. But for the first time in months, The Corvan Syndicate was about to face something more dangerous than they were when Deathworlders answered. Our human fleet arrived exactly 71 hours and 14 minutes after Captain Chen's transmission ended. Rifter had been monitoring the system's edge sensors obsessively, watching for any sign of the promised relief force. What emerged from hyperspace made her question everything she thought she knew about military vessels. The lead ship alone was larger than Aquines's primary space station. Its hull was a matte black that seemed to devour starlight, covered in structures that could only be weapons systems. Behind it came dozens of smaller vessels, each one bristling with enough firepower to level a city. They moved with predatory grace, like deep-sea hunters sliding through dark water. But it was what happened next that truly terrified Rifter. The moment the human fleet achieved system entry, every Corvan ship in the area simply ... stopped. Their aggressive patrol patterns ceased. Their constant communications chatter went silent. 300 ships that had been terrorizing Aquinas for months suddenly found themselves facing something that made them hesitate. "Commander," her communications officer reported, voice trembling. "We're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Put it through to the main display." Rifter ordered. Captain Chen appeared on the screen, but she looked different now. The businesslike demeanor remained, but underneath it was something harder, colder. She stood on what appeared to be a command bridge filled with humans in dark uniforms, all moving with mechanical precision around displays showing tactical information. "Commander Rifter, this is Captain Chen aboard the EHDS Retribution. We've completed our initial tactical assessment. The Corvan force consists of 317 vessels of various classes, plus ground installations on 4 of your continents. Estimated enemy personnel, 200,000 combatants, plus approximately 50,000 captives." "Captives?" Rifter asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Civilians taken during their ground operations. Standard Corvan procedure is to use them as shields during combat operations. We've accounted for this in our operational planning." The casual way Chen discussed the lives of Rifter's people as tactical considerations made her scales crawl. But before she could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. "Commander," her tactical officer shouted, "the human ships are moving." The display shifted to show the human fleet spreading throughout the system with impossible coordination. Ships that had been in tight formation moments before were now taking positions that formed a perfect three-dimensional web around every Corvan vessel. It was like watching a pack of predators surround their prey. "Captain Chen," Rifter said urgently, "what are you doing? You said 72 hours. "I said to expect us within 72 hours, Chen corrected. "I never said we would wait 72 hours to begin operations. The Corvan Syndicate has been marked for elimination. That process begins now." What followed would haunt Rifter's dreams for the rest of her life. The humans didn't broadcast warnings or demands for surrender. They didn't attempt negotiations or give the Corvans opportunity to withdraw. They simply opened fire. But calling it opening fire was like calling a tsunami a wave. The human weapons unleashed destruction on a scale that defied comprehension. Corvan ships that had seemed massive and threatening simply ceased to exist, vaporized by energy beams that cut through their hulls like heated blades through soft flesh. The few vessels that attempted to return fire found their weapons completely inadequate against human shielding technology. "My God," whispered Elder Findar, watching the tactical display as red dots representing Corvan ships blinked out of existence. One by one, they're not fighting them, they're exterminating them. In less than 30 minutes, The space battle was over. 317 Corvin ships had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris and superheated gas. Not a single human vessel showed damage indicators on their scanners. But the humans weren't finished. Commander Rifter, Chen's voice came through the speakers. We're beginning ground operations. Recommend you evacuate all personnel from coastal areas. Our marine forces prefer to work without civilian interference. Marine forces? Rifter asked. But her question was answered by what appeared on the long-range sensors. Hundreds of small craft were launching from the human ships, streaking toward Aquinas' surface like falling stars. They moved too fast for Corvin ground-based defenses to track, splitting apart in the atmosphere to reveal individual soldiers encased in what looked like mechanical armor. The humans hit the ground. Fighting Rifter watched in horrified fascination as tactical feeds from across the planet showed the same pattern repeating. Human soldiers would identify Corvin positions, eliminate defensive structures with surgical precision, then systematically advance through enemy territory. They moved like machines, coordinated beyond anything the Zealothi had ever seen, responding. 2 threats before they fully materialized. But it was their treatment of the Corvin forces that truly shocked her. There were no prisoners taken, no mercy shown, no quarter given. When human soldiers encountered resistance, they eliminated it completely and moved on. The efficiency was breathtaking and terrifying. Commander, her intelligence officer reported, we're receiving data feeds from the human forces. They're liberating the captive populations. Relief flooded through Rifter until she saw the tactical summaries. The humans were indeed freeing Zealothi civilians, but their methods were as brutal as everything else they did. Corvin guards were eliminated without hesitation, often before they even realized they were under attack. Captive facilities were secured within minutes of human arrival. Within 6 hours, the ground war was over. Every Corvin installation on Aquinas had been destroyed or captured. Enemy casualties were total. Human casualties, according to their reports, numbered 0. Captain Chen's image appeared on the main display again. This time, she was planetside, standing in what had been a Corvin command center hours earlier. Behind her, human soldiers moved through the facility with mechanical precision, cataloging equipment and processing data. Commander Rifter, the immediate threat has been neutralized. All Corvin forces in the Aquinas system have been eliminated. Your world is secure. Eliminated, Rifter repeated slowly. You mean? I mean they're all dead, Chen said simply. The Corvin Syndicate no longer exists as a functioning organization. We've identified and eliminated their support networks, supply bases, and leadership structure throughout this sector. They will not be troubling anyone again. The words should have brought relief, but instead they filled Rifter with a growing sense of dread. The humans had solved their problem with such overwhelming efficiency that it suggested capabilities far beyond what any single species should possess. What happens now? She asked. Now we discuss payment, Chen replied, and that cold smile returned to her face. As I mentioned, Earth's protection services aren't free. The elimination of a Class 5 threat like the Corvin Syndicate requires significant resource investment. What do you want? Your world possesses something unique in this sector, Chen said, gesturing to the ocean visible through the facilities. Windows, Aquinas, has the purest water reserves in known space. Our industrial operations require massive amounts of clean water for manufacturing and life support systems. Rifter felt her heart sink. You want our oceans. We want exclusive, Rights to 70% of your world's water production, Chen corrected. In exchange, Aquanis will be designated as a protected world under Earth Defense Authority. No hostile force will ever threaten your people again. 70% of our water, that would fundamentally change our world. Our entire ecosystem depends on those water levels. Your entire ecosystem was about to be strip-mined by the Corvins, Chen pointed out. This arrangement allows you to maintain your civilization and cultural independence. You simply provide the resources necessary to ensure continued protection. And if we refuse, Chun's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes grew harder. Then you're free to handle future threats on your own. Though I should mention that the Corvin Syndicate had several allied organizations that may seek to claim their territory now that we've eliminated them. The galaxy is a dangerous place for worlds without adequate protection. The threat was clear without being stated directly. Accept Earth's terms or face the next group of predators alone. I need to consult with my council, Rifta said. Of course, you have 24 hours to decide. After that, our fleet moves on to other assignments. The transmission ended, leaving Rifta staring at the blank screen. Around her, the command center buzzed with activity as her staff processed reports from across the planet. The Corvins were gone, eliminated so completely that it was as if they had never existed. Her people were safe, free to rebuild their lives and their world. But that freedom had come with chains of its own. Elder Findar approached her, his ancient face grave with understanding. They saved us, he said quietly. Yes, Rifta agreed. And now they own us. She nodded, unable to trust her voice. The humans hadn't conquered Aquanis through force or invasion. They had simply made themselves indispensable, then named their price for remaining so. Outside the windows, human ships continued their patrols, sleek predators ensuring that no threat would ever again reach the world they now protected. The sight should have been comforting, but all Rifta could think about was the casual efficiency with which they had eliminated 300 ships and 200,000 beings. The Corvins had wanted to enslave her people. The humans had simply found a more elegant way to accomplish the same goal. As reports continued flowing in from around the planet, detailing the complete destruction of every Corvin facility and the liberation of every captive, Rifta realized the truth that would define her world's future. When you sent an SOS to Earth, they always answered. They always eliminated the threat completely and efficiently. But salvation from Deathworlders always came with a price that was paid long after the initial gratitude had faded. And that price was always exactly what they had wanted all along. The beacon that had summoned humanity still sat on the council chamber table, dark and silent now that its purpose had been served. Looking at it, Rifta wondered if they had ever really had a choice at all, or if this outcome had been inevitable. From the moment they first declined Earth's protection treaty centuries ago, the humans had simply waited for desperation to make their terms acceptable. And now Aquanis belonged to them, wrapped in the gentle chains of protection that could never be safely removed.